Yes.
Hey, what's going on, mate?
Hey, hello, mate. Sorry, we're running a bit behind, buddy. Running a bit behind,
Oh, mate, there's no worries with that. No worries with that at all. How we doing? We good?
mate. We're all good. We're all good. We're doing all right. I feel like I'm in a bit of the final stretch now, so I'm um
Yeah,
I'm
mate.
buzzing, mate.
You've
We're
only got a
still
few left, innit? A few left.
a few left to go. The voice is the voice is starting to go a little bit. I've got some honey and lemon, and I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
Yeah,
So we're
yeah, you
winning,
sound like
mate.
me.
Mate, listen, thanks so much for jumping on. I know it's early doors, so mate, we really grateful and buzzing to have you. So, mate,
No.
let's jump straight in. Let's jump straight in. We're gonna talk to me, talk to the listeners. Tell us a little bit about your story, your career.
Yeah, look, I think I've, well, over the last 25 years, I've been very much dominated in the hospitality space. So, um, started back in 1998, got myself a graduate scheme. I passed my university course by the skin of my teeth. Um, and then I got a graduate scheme with Bass back in the day when I was 18, 21. Started there. So worked my way through. Became a GM when I was like 21, 22. Worked in the corporate world in Mitchells and Butlers for about 8 years, or 6 years, 7 years. And then moved my way on to where I cut my teeth was Tiger. There's not one in Brighton, but I worked in one in Cardiff, London. Worked my way around. I mean, they were the best. They were the best around as well. Novus at that point were the best company around. Very, very lucky to work with such a great company. And so many of them, people that work there now are sort of MDs, CEOs of big businesses in the hospitality space. So it sort of shows the sort of caliber that came through. So I was lucky enough to work with them. And then 2011, 12 was it? Came back to Cardiff, sort of got, and then just went and bought my own bars. Went on my own. So got 3 bars. Really proud of the bars we launched, sort of award-winning bars in Cardiff. Sold 2 of them, lost one. The one kicked my ass, to be honest. As we've spoken about previously, and
Uh,
yeah, and then since then, I've sort of been finding myself something, to be honest. So
mm,
I'm still in the hospitality space, but I think for me, as we'll go through the podcast, for me, I know where my sort of superpower lies. My superpower power has been given to me through the hospitality trade, but it's about influencing people, and I just want to influence as many people and train and develop as many people as I can now. So, that's the whirlwind journey of where I sit right this moment, mate.
I love that. Love that. Look, I'm keen to talk about obviously about some challenges and stuff that you face, but to talk to. I know we've spoke briefly before about it offline as well, but talk like that the one that kicked your ass. You said about that bar. Talk to me a little bit about that process and mindset around that time of having to close that. And
Yeah, it was tough. I think like anything, you're going to go through at the time. I've got to be honest. I've had plenty of time now to reflect why, what happened and where, how did I get to a point of it closing down. But the reality was, it wasn't my offer. I opened it up with a lot of people around me. It wasn't the offer I really felt passionately about, and I went along with the journey. And but to make that decision to close was a tough one. In reality, now obviously there's a lot of harder things to, life is about living, not worrying about what you don't do. It's worrying about what you're going to do. And but the reality was that at the time it was the hardest decision I had to make, and it it took us under. It really did. I'm in the house now. We kept the house, but we lost near enough everything else, and I'm still paying for that decision now. But to have to make the decision, it was the only decision I could make. It wasn't necessarily I've listened to a couple of your podcasts previously, and one of the guy I know, one of your gentlemen that was on previous was talking about I made the decision. Yeah, well, I made the decision with my wife, to close it. But what I made sure I did is looked after everyone because that's the sort of guy I am. I
Yeah.
literally made sure, I had to look after the team. I had a great team, and they're still together now. The businesses I sold, the two of the bars that I sold, the teams are still together, and that's testament to one, the venue, but also looking after people right. And but it was tough, mate. There's no getting around that. I'm in a much better, healthier place now than I've ever been. But like you say, and like I've heard you say previously, everything sort of makes you learn, and I've always looked at it like as always a learning curve as anything else. But like at the time, I remember going in, making the decision, then the next day just going in and starting to pile the stuff out, and all my family came to help me, and I still remember stood in the venue that we closed down, and all my family just stood there going, what are we doing? What do you want us to do, John? And I was like, look, just grab everything you can and we chuck it in that van there. and, and my dad was like, my dad came over and gave me a big hug, but he was like, are you sure you're okay, big man? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. At the time, I was in the zone. I just knew what I needed to do. But, as soon as I closed the doors and gave the keys back to the landlord, the reality hit that actually this is real now. And but it was a decision I stand by, and it was a tough one, mate. It was a real tough one. It kicked, and when you got, I think we've spoken about it before. When you come home and you say to your wife, you're going to lose everything, that is not where you want to be, and that was definitely the hardest conversation I've ever had with my wife, and she's been massively supportive, and she's my rock, and she's been everything. I wouldn't be on this journey if it weren't for my wife.
I love that. I love that. But as much as like, because I'm now, as you've had time to reflect a little bit, and you look back, and again we've shared that similar type of journey and that conversation you have. But because it was the only right decision, that was the right decision at the time. Is as much as there's some pain points there, can you go back to that point and go, there was that sense of relief? Like you close that door, there's that sense of
Yeah,
relief as well.
yeah, 100%, 100%. It was. Look, I think it's interesting because there's lots of business. I take my hat off to we got a mutual friend, Rob Starr. He's a total legend in his own right. He's been
Yeah,
on my podcast as well, and but for the example I'm trying to make is that the length of time he's been in business and the length of time that his company's been going. I mean, he's over 30 years or 20 odd years now. And I take my hat off to anyone that's got that business that, you've been in it for that length of period of time because, the ups and the downs, the decisions, the numbers get bigger, but the decisions are the same decisions you've got to make. They just become,
yeah,
become harder, become, used to them. But, that, it was, there was a lot of pain and a lot of reflection, really. I had to, but the thing is, but as you well know, you just got to get on, right?
yeah,
I ended up selling my stuff that was in the, I ended up having to think of the first time actually I had to think about my kids and family because I just didn't think about them going into business. I didn't think about them enough. And coming out of it, it was a painful decision to make. Absolutely 100% the right decision. If I hadn't have made that, I just wasn't in it. My head wasn't there.
yeah,
I wasn't making, ultimately I wasn't making any money. Um,
yeah,
and it was only going to get worse. So no, but that decision I made was it was a soul crunching one. Really, it was it's a defeated one. You feel like a failure. You feel like as though you failed, but the reality is, as we all know, and in reflection, you fail every day. How you look at failure. And I've got a really quite positive attitude now with failure. I always have done. I mean, but
yeah,
my mates can probably vouch for it. When I played rugby for the team I played for, maybe we lost a lot more than we won.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but and so I'm used to losing, but not really in the field of hospitality. I've always gone into venues and won, so it was a really strange acceptance that actually John's not sort of John's just not in a position. He loses at something, and I sort of felt like as though I had to lick my wounds and I'd lost or whatever. But as I say, it's changed my total view on failure since, and it's a learning curve, and I massively learned from that experience.
love that. I love that. And talk to me. And then, obviously, being in hospitality, we couldn't not talk about March 2020, the global pandemic, and like just being involved in the industry around that time. Like, talk to me a little bit about, again, mindset around that as running nightclubs, and where you are, and that sort of position, and yeah, what goes through your head, the global pandemic at that point. And
Yeah, I think I was in a quite a lucky I say lucky position, but I was in quite a favourable position when actually lockdown hit me. To be honest, because I as soon as I'd lost my businesses, I just jumped straight back on the wagon, and hence why we met really, because we came to Brighton. As a family, we needed a bit of a break, so we came down to Brighton for 2 years, and had a great 2 years down there. In
yeah,
essence, I was working with someone then, so I actually got furloughed, and I was the luckiest person around. But I think what I did have is total empathy over the decision making that needed to be made from people above, and the industry. But ultimately, I still had 100 staff that I needed to look after. However much they were, I
you're
was
still
paid
general manager there.
paid.
What was you?
Yeah, I
You
was
still
managing.
general
Yeah, I was GM of Prism on the seafront, mate. So
manager?
again, like I
So
say, it was great.
yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, you're still, obviously there's people above you and you're working for someone, but there's still I guess, like you said, staff, and there's a leader, and but just being, I guess, just being around that industry at that time. Like, look, any industry, the global pandemic hit, and we're all in the unknown, aren't we? But hospitality in general, like, it's just a tough place to be in, no?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with it, mate, was look the industry itself. Look, it's an amazing industry, right? There's no two ways about it. It's an amazing industry, but it's full of young kids, right? And the young kids are the ones that make it happen. The reason why we've got that real big shortage at the moment in the industry for staff is because that period of time had a massive impact. Especially with Brexit, we've gone through a perfect storm in the industry, but that time alone, the mental health of our staff, and the ones that look after the people are the ones that are winning it now. The
Yeah,
ones that really took their time to invest in their people. And I know a well-known hotel on the seafront that I won't mention names or the hotel, but it's a big hotel, and they paid their staff in full all the way through. Didn't go on furlough, paid them full. If I'm a member of staff that work for somebody, who am I going to go back and work for? Someone that looked after me in that year and a half, and really nurtured me, or someone who didn't. And then you've got the flip side of that, like Weatherspoons, that didn't want to pay anything out. So you can come out of it. But that was the biggest thing for me through that lockdown period and COVID generally was just the people. And that's part and parcel of where I'm going now is that I've understood and I understood at that time that people come first, and they're young kids and they need nurturing and they need looking after. But the industry's had an absolute kick in, and it hasn't stopped either, is it? It's just continued. It's been a barrage of, like, it's the cost of living, but hospitality generally. Like, a mate of mine had a bill like last week for his quarter. His quarterly bill was 3 times as much as his yearly bill last year. How can he survive? All of a sudden, the energy crisis comes in, and instead of it being the fifth biggest bill, it ends up being the second biggest bill overnight. So there's some challenging times coming up. But again, the ones that look after their people are the ones who'll get through this.
I love that. I love that. And talk to, so, because you obviously then, so looking back at that period during lockdown, you said you was put on furlough. Did that give you that bit of time to reflect then of where you were? Like, what does Jon Saunders actually want now, and where do I want to go? Would that be right?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think it's a great question. It's a great. I use that furlough time to my advantage. I worked all the way through it. I was in NHS. I worked with the NHS, so I was a responder. So I just got myself into it, but it gave me an opportunity to really reflect on where I sat with my own life, really. And we made a ballsy decision. Like, me and my wife, we've moved everywhere, Sam. And she's always supported me all the way through it. Every decision I've made, we've made together. But ultimately, she supported me. But yeah, in reflection, that time period, I knew I didn't want to work for someone who I didn't want to work for. And I know that sounds, I don't think, I like to think I'm a bit of a maverick, but I know now I'm not. I'm not meant to be sat in a. I'm not meant to work for somebody else necessarily. I'm there to influence, people, and that's, I decided then that, whatever happens going forward, I'm going to make my own. I work for myself. I do my own thing. I open my own businesses and work it from there. So yeah, it was quite a big moment, the COVID, because we moved back to Cardiff, got our old house back. And yeah, from my point of view, the good thing is, man, I think if we have this conversation in 3 years' time, I'm going to be on. I know I'm going to be in a absolute different place, and the business is going to rock it up. But because I'm on a bit of a finding mission in the last 3 years, and I've enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it. I've actually done lots of things the last 3, 4 years, but purposely to find out what I don't want to do. And I found out lots of things I don't want to do, mate. And I know I don't want to work till 5 in the morning, and I know there's lots. And that's how you find it, isn't it? You find it by actually doing them and learning that actually I don't want to do that as opposed to I want to do it.
Yeah, because I guess like I obviously want to talk about that, like the whole work-life balance thing that I talk about on every episode, pretty much. But especially being involved in hospitality for as long as you did, like with the kids and your wife, and that's got to be a tough industry to be in to keep that work-life balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. But you know what? I always, and if there's anyone that listens to this that's from the hospitality or any industry, you've got to make the industry work around your life. And
Yeah,
actually, I used to love having Friday, Monday, Tuesdays, or Wednesdays off because I could go into town. I wouldn't have to queue at any queuing station. I'd just be able to go do whatever I want to do. I'd be able to go
yeah,
out on Tuesday night. I could get a booking whenever I wanted to. And actually, what better way on a Friday, Saturday night to get paid to just sit, with respect. And I'm saying this as a married man, but there's lovely ladies everywhere. There's guys having fun. There's mates coming out having beers. How can you possibly think it's like you're getting paid to have fun? So, and all I really did was use it as a networking tool. Whenever I came to Brighton, Cardiff, so work-life balance for me, I didn't get it right to begin with. Right when I first had kids, I can't, it's hard to explain. I was thinking about it actually when I read the questions when he sent through, and that I didn't respect my kids or my family when I was a drinker. I suppose as a drinker, but I was a drinker, working late. Quite like having a beer after work. I was a party animal, so I'd be the first on the dance floor. And I was, to be honest, man, I wasn't that nice a person in reflection. Like 9, 10 years ago, I wasn't that person I wanted to be. But as I was going through it, my work-life balance, I felt I had control of it. But in reflection, I didn't.
yeah,
I was a bit of a party animal, and but the industry can do that to you. But the bigger picture is the you can make the industry work for you because I used to enjoy those days off but the reality, it can get to you, and the booze and I never drank on shift, right? I never drank on shift. I never drank when I was on shift. I was on shift. I never drank on shift. But there is a very loose environment with alcohol in our industry because it is so easy to get a hands on, but also there's an attitude with that. So, to say at the beginning I had control of it, my wife would probably absolutely disagree. And like I said, I haven't drunk for 9 years. So, and those 9 years have been brilliant for my wife and me.
yeah.
But maybe prior
What
to
what
that, maybe I didn't have control of it.
what 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 what, what made your decision to stop drinking completely? What was it? Just being in the
Uh,
industry too hard,
no,
or
no,
just getting to the point?
no, no. Look, quite honestly with you, mate, I've been in hospital too many times, right? So Um, that's the honest truth. I was in and out, no, in and out of hospital. I wasn't I didn't. My wife would probably argue with it, but I wasn't an alcoholic. I didn't think, but as they say, people say I wasn't one of those ones that felt like I came home and drank all the time. But long story short, when I had my bar, 10 Mill Lane, we'd opened 10 Mill Lane. And we'd had a party after a cricket game, so I was like, having the main club in the city. I was the main guy around town, right? So, and I used to love that, and I love that still. I still walk around town and people say, "John boy, how you doing?" And I've got a good network from him, mate. And that's what it's about, isn't it? Your network, as they say, is your net worth. But anyway, went from a cricket game, came back to Temple Lane, and bearing in mind this nightclub that I had was open till 6 in the morning, so it was a late operative, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, one of the guys was spiking my drinks, and long story short, like I said, I walked out. I woke up in hospital the next day. My sister was in front of me, and I had some, a drip in my arm. And my sister just sort of looked at me and went, John, what are you doing, bud? The guy that found you were being sick. He had to put you in recovery position because you were choking on your sick. And if it had been 5, 10 minutes more, there's a potential you could have died, right? So I think, she said, you got 3 kids, you got a beautiful wife, you got a life ahead of you. What the hell are you doing? So I just vowed then not to drink again, and that was
Wow.
that. So I stopped drinking from that day, mate.
And you haven't touched a drop since.
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting. I thought about this yesterday as well. I haven't touched a drop as in like that. Look, the thing is, in the cocktail world I've been in and I'm in, it's hard to do cocktails without sort of at least trying if they taste right. Okay, so has it touched my lips? Yes. Alcohol has touched my lips. Have I got the discipline now to go back on the wagon? Yes. I don't want to touch a beer. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't want to touch a drink in that sense. But tasting cocktails, so I suppose what I don't want is your listeners to think, he's a double standards guy. He's got cocktails everywhere. He must be able to test them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I do taste the cocktails as they go out because I think
There's a difference in there. There's a difference between that and doing that for a job and tasting cocktails to going out and having a drink and getting on it. But mate, fair play to
absolutely.
you. Yeah, that's mate, fair play, fair play. And I'm keen to look at like we talked obviously of the stage you're at a minute with obviously the coaching, and especially within that with crack on coaching. So talk to me a little bit about that, so I guess the methods and stuff that you help managers in hospitality and what that looks like. Give me some key elements that you go in and teach those people about.
Yeah, I think the coaching and training piece is so crack on coaching from a business point of view is sort of really in infancy. I'm doing a lot of associate work at the moment, so I'm doing a lot of I'm just building my skills up, mate. So, but there's some key things within coaching. Look, any coaching is about looking in the mirror, right?
Yeah,
And it's about looking at yourself in the mirror and how often as people and individuals do we look in the mirror and say, "Am I happy? Am I happy with who I
yeah,
am?" And what I'm doing with my coaching and what I'm doing with my training is asking people that exact question. Because if the answer is no, and you've got to do something about it. And ultimately, the best people in the world have the best coaches, right? So, you look at the New Zealand team, you look at any team that's done anything in their world. It's all about the coaches in the background that to push it out. We all remember a really good teacher or a good coach, and that
yeah,
influenced our lives. And so all I'm doing at the moment, I say it feels like I'm giving back to the industry a bit because I know the pains they're all going through. I know the
yeah,
pains the hospitality trade go through, and they're not infallible. They're all going through pains. They're all owners have got mortgages to pay, and they've got families to feed, and they've got teams to feed, right? So what I'm there to do is to coach those people through, those owners and leaders through to get them into a better place. And having some really good successes actually, mate. So I'm really enjoying the coaching bit. But the bit I'm getting a lot from is the training. The training development, just being in front of people. My superpower is standing up in front. It's like you, mate. It's like, I'm not backwards coming forwards, right? But I've got the ability to talk to people and connect with people.
Mate,
Connections.
you're a people person. Like, like we connected straight away, and you click with someone, and like I
Yeah,
say, you come down to Brighton, and you built a network quite quickly because you're just such a likable guy. And then, Like, I remember you talking to me at the time about obviously going back to Cardiff. And you said like I've got a massive net, and I can only imagine the network you've got in Cardiff, and I can imagine you walking through Cardiff and be, hello John, you know what I mean? Everyone knowing you from that, but because you are just that, like you meet you what. Get people get to meet you once, they don't forget you. You might have an impact on people just because again you're just and that enthusiasm. Like when you said you'd agree to do the 5 o'clock one for me, I'm buzzing about that because I know that the energy you bring and just your enthusiasm with it breeds positivity, breeds as much as negativity, doesn't it? I'm a strong believer of that, and I think
100%.
yeah, and your enthusiasm for life. And I listen to your posts, and we'll talk about it in a minute about sort of the Iron Man and stuff like that, and challenges you sort of set yourself and go out and do. And that in itself is inspirational, And I think,
Yeah,
and
cool, mate. Yeah, like you say, I think we can go into sort of. I think you've always got to be half full, right? I think people. I haven't got a sorry story about my upbringing. I haven't got a sorry story about what I've done and where I've been, and I've been very, very lucky with the parenting and the upbringing I've had, mate. I can't. Funny enough, I was talking to again my wife the other day back about how we bring our kids up, and actually how would we do it any different? Because she's very lucky. She unfortunately had her mum passed away a couple of years ago, but her family upbringing was amazing, and we've had great upbringings, and that side of it's always been about being half full. My dad always said to me, do what you want to do, mate, but you've just got to put everything into it. And that's how I've always run life. And positivity, as you said, breeds positivity. I think the bit that for me is that I always look at things in a way of solutions as opposed to look at the problem. Because what's the point in coming to life with a problem when actually it's the solution you need to move forward? So that Iron Man piece you just alluded to. I only wanted to really do it to beat a mate of mine. The first one I ever did. That's the competitive side of me. Was I had a mate of mine. I thought I'd be pretty good at that, So I had a go at it, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. And then obviously I did the second one recently in Wales.
yeah,
Um, just a different why, really. I know next year if I do it again, which I probably will, I've got to do it for a charity or at least do it with other people around me to bring them through. Because my why in bag my time, I've already done a decent time, so I want to do it for other people now, which is interesting. So that's my reality. But I'm like you. I'm an ambassador to a great charity in Wales called T Havan, which is for. I think the Rock and Horse charity you're doing this for, mate, is amazing. It's a great charity, and I take my hat off to everything you do. But yeah, the Ironman was a challenge in itself, mate. It's a challenge in itself.
because like, even the training for something like I done a triathlon. Like, I joined Rob on the one in Hever Castle, and
Yeah,
where we see each other at the start, and it's my first one I've ever done, and I done
yeah.
okay. I got through,
Congratulations.
mate. Thank you. I texted him when I'd finished, and I went, "Oh, mate, where are you? Still here?" He went, "Yeah, sorry, mate. I did wait for a bit, but I weren't sure whether you'd already come in or." Yeah, cheers.
Yeah,
About
thanks, mate.
4 hours behind him, and he
Yeah,
goes,
but
"Yeah, he's only done one Friday, and then jumped on again on Sunday." So yeah, mate,
oh yeah, no,
awesome.
the challenge you're doing is amazing. But just coming back to that, and again looking at talking to your listeners a bit. The thing is, with like you'll get people on your podcast, and I've interviewed people that have done massively more than an Ironman, right? But my Ironman is only someone else's 5K, right? And that's how I look at it. And I don't mean to sound that in a flippant way. It may well be over a longer bit of distance, but how I've trained for that and how I've had to get up for that is the same as someone getting from a couch to 5K because
Yeah,
that's a big enough achievement. I love, I can't tell you how good it is to see big people that are obese running around the lake or running anywhere because they're trying to get somewhere. Now, for me, that's such a bigger achievement. If they were going to do like a 5K or a 2K or a 1K, whatever it is, and they put in their sights to it, and like you said, my Ironman becomes their 5K, and that's how I look at it.
I love that analogy, but I do think like, and I totally agree with you, but I'm keen to because I'd love to do an Ironman. It will be something eventually, somewhere along the line, not perhaps quite yet, but what? not just the training for something like that, and the endurance and the mindset, because it's so much of it. I've run marathons, so similar, just obviously on a bigger scale, but it's so much up there, and it's so much in your mind to complete a test, an endurance test like that. No,
It is, mate. It is. But again, a learning because I've now done a couple. You've got to get clear on why you're doing it, right?
yeah,
You've got to get very clear on why you're doing it. If it's because by the time you get to the lap three on the last, you've done three quarters of a marathon, you've done 112 miles, and you've swam 2.5 miles, right? So on that third lap, when things are really really tough, you then start reflecting on what am I doing this for, right? And if that why isn't strong enough, if it isn't strong enough, you're not gonna put what you want in it, and that's all I'd ever say. It doesn't matter about the training. If you want it bad enough, mate, you know the sketch. You'll get it done. It doesn't matter what the boundaries are. If the wall's there, you'll either go over it or you go through it. But what you have got to get clear on before you do anything like that, any challenge like that, is you've got to get your why. And when I was on my third lap this time round, on my second one, it felt so much different to the first time. The first one, I couldn't stop running. I had to keep going because I wanted to kick my mate's bum. The second one, I was doing it again, wasn't I? So it was like I can take this quite easy because I've already bagged the time. I'm not going to do my PB if that was ever my why. But I started questioning why I was doing it, and it then became down. Do I want to finish this for the charity? I was never not going to finish it. I'm
yeah,
stubborn like that. But to get yourself into that position, all I'd ever say is if you're going to do one, just understand why you're doing it. Because if it's
yeah,
strong enough, you'll finish it. It doesn't matter then. You're going to do it, right? The training just comes. You just get the training done. It doesn't matter. But you've got to clear that why in your head.
yeah. I love that. And you, like, and again, I refer back to Rob, but he saying a similar thing. I remember asking him a similar question about the Ironman, and he said exactly the same. He said, you just got to, like you would if you come up with a new business idea and you're going to go and implement that. You just make sure you work it into your day, don't you? You either get up an
Yeah,
hour early or you go to bed an hour later, whatever that looks like. But somehow you fit that into your day. And I
you
guess it's
do.
entrepreneurs. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's the thing, mate. Like someone says, like, how do you fit the training in? You just do. You
yeah,
just do. I love the journey. Like
yeah,
people talk about the journey and like loving it. I love the journey. I much prefer the training. The day in Wales, right, is amazing. Like I'm a passionate Welshman, right? But like, I'm such a passionate Welshman, and that Wales crowd is unbelievable. It's even giving me tingles now just talking about it, right? The crowd on the day is unbelievable, right? I can't explain it. It's like Tour de France, some parts of the cycle. It's like unbelievable. But the bit that you've got to get, like I say, before you even enter it, you've just got to understand that what am I doing this for?
yeah,
But the journey for me is the one, the training, and I just love the training, and I don't stop. I don't want to stop, and you then think, like, how do I stretch myself to something bigger and better? And like I've done the Ironman a couple of times now. I'm going to get a tattoo now, and I've done it, so I'm all cool.
love that. But like, for me, listening to you talk about that and describe it, all those skills there that you've taken from the Ironman is skills in life, isn't it? Like why are we running a business? What's your why for running your business? All those type of things, and and all those elements that skill set, that mindset from doing an endurance test, whether it be an Ironman, a marathon, like you said, for some people a 5K, whatever it looks like, doing some form of endurance test where you're pushing yourself and getting that mindset right. If you know what your why is coming back to business. That's how you relate it to business, isn't it?
100%, mate. And then going back full circle on why did I stop? So I knew my why wasn't strong enough. I knew when I
Yeah,
walked in there into my bar that it wasn't where I wanted to sit.
yeah,
But and if I'd have known what I know now, I'd have sold them. I was in the
yeah,
mindset of closing it down, but actually the reality is I should have sold them, and that's the learning really. So yeah, absolutely, the Iron Man. It's got so many transferable skill, elements to business life. It's untrue, but again, like I say, anyone that's in that hard times. I mean, the other bit of advice is reach out because the options aren't just to close. I got that. Talking just I know a bit off piece, but when my accountant said to me, "Look, mate, this is looking tough. You may need to close." As soon as he said that, that's all I kept thinking about. And but there
yeah,
are other options, so don't listen to your accountant. Straight up, go and get some advice if you're in that position of it going down. when your business is in a real struggle state, reach out to other people. Your network you've got, Sam, is amazing. There's so many people in that network that can help people. So, just talk
Yeah,
about it. If you've got issues and you're finding it tough, which business is tough, as we know. Reach out and,
yeah.
and get some advice.
Mate, it's great advice, and we do. I think, like I say, you've done your own podcast as well. And I don't know how you felt about it when you've done yours, but certainly for me, like this becomes a bit like therapy for me. It's quite
Yeah.
cathartic, and because I speak to people, I talk about the things that I do struggle with, like work life balance or parts of the business journey, or what, and again, alluding back to what you're saying about your why, etc., and all those transferable skills, but the journey that everyone I've talked to, like I had two people on tonight. Um, one of them's um, sold a company last year for 450 million. Dollars, you know what I mean, for Brand Watch, like phenomenal company. He's grown from scratch over 15 years, sold out before. But he talks about not that he sold for 450 million and, he's got all this money that he can do what he wants with, but that he's talks about the journey and that process and enjoying that. And but it's hard sometimes you tell me, but from my point of view, sometimes it's hard to keep checking in with yourself because I know that that's right. I know that you got to enjoy the journey, but when you're going through them tough points and you're looking in your bank and you're not got that pound note in there, you got to go out and you roll your sleeves up and you get back stuck in and you go and nick another pound note. But to keep picking yourself up out of that, it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it is tough. And I think, again, those last 4 or 5 years I've had since I lost the business, in reflection, if I had the right team around me at that point, I probably wouldn't be sat here now talking to you. I'd probably have about 15, 20 bars. So the reality is, however much that was wrong for me then, if you've got, like, I know I'm plugging coaching, but, or, I never believed in coaching. I just didn't.
Yeah,
But it's not necessarily just a coach or a mentor, or there's other people out there that have been there, done it, and bought the t-shirt. So why not learn and,
yeah,
and grow with them? They've made the mistake, so you haven't got to. And I think that bit of advice with reaching out, and trying to check in, I totally buy it, mate. It's a lonely place, right? You think you're in it on your own. Hence why then you've got to surround yourself with other people that have either done it. Like I've got four mates that, they've been my best mates since I was 9. Well, they've all been successful in their own right, okay, in every area they've worked in, but every one of them is different. So if I need a bit of advice, I know I can just go to them and they'll tell me straight. They'll give it me as it is. Like, John, what is going on with you today, right? Or at the moment. Or they'll just give it me. But I know which friend to go to for the advice I need, you know?
yeah,
Because I know they're not going to buttercup it. They're not going to give it to you, they sugarcoat it. They're going to give it to you. And I think, that sort of thing you were saying about, there are people out there, and there are people that have been through worse times. And you've just got to find that time and surround yourself. I know it's a cliche, but surround yourself with the right people. You're going to get the right results, mate, aren't you? So, I think if you do that, especially with business, people have been there and done it. Surround yourself with people that have been there and done it. First thing I did when I was doing my Ironman, surround myself with someone who's done it. And I just went cycling and running with them because they'd already done one. So if I was as fit as them, I was going to be able to do it.
yeah. I love
You
that.
know?
I love that. I guess from a coaching point of view as well, that coach makes you accountable, don't they?
Yeah.
Or that mentor is someone that's made because when you are on your own and you're an entrepreneur, you're just that you're accountable to yourself. So you've got the thing. But if you go to someone and there's actually because as an entrepreneur, there's no one above you, and you're doing everything. Someone mentioned it the other day about me saying, "Sam, you're doing it. You're flying the plane. You're the pilot, and you're also serving the nuts in the back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to find balance. You can't do it. You got to get to a point where you're not doing everything. So talk to people. And yes, I've never done coaching, but it's something or had a mentor, and it's something certainly for in my mindset looking at going to get to that next stage in whatever business I run and whatever it is. It's got to be a path to get me there because I haven't got all the answers, and we're on a journey and trying to find them.
Yeah, but what the great thing with you, mate, and this is where I see a lot of myself in you is what you do is you get up and you do what you say you're going to do. So this podcast is one of them, and what me and you will end up doing. I know it sounds, but we'll end up getting to where we want to get to, because all you're doing is the path. You're on the path to get there, because you do what you say. Sam says this, Sam does that. That's one of the amazing qualities you've got. But ultimately, that's what I don't want to let anyone down, and I know that my wife and family, and my why, the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is more so now for them than anyone else, any other time in my life, because I know I don't want my wife to go through what she went through. They're first world
Yeah.
problems, they are first world problems. I'm still sat here with a cup of coffee, in my nice flipping kitchen, having a podcast with a mate of mine that lives down in Brighton. Well, what a great place to be, first world problem. But the reality is that you've got to get yourself into a position where you know where you want to be, you know where you want to go, and like you said, mate, it's the journey, isn't it? So, and I'm still on that journey. But yeah, mate, I love what you're doing, and like I say, me and you will get to where we need to get to.
I'm sure we will. On that note, mate, what does the future hold for Jon Saunders?
Yeah, look, it's exciting, mate. I'm really, really excited by where I am at the moment. I'm doing it. Look, at the moment, I'm not, the business I want to have isn't where I want it to be at the moment, right? So I know I want to be my own boss, and I want to be in a position where. So I'm self-employed realistically at the moment, but I'm gaining skills. So those training skills that I'm gaining every day, I'm getting better and better at coaching and training every day. So I would say, I know the future is me influencing many, right? That's where it's going to be. I'm going to influence many people, and that's where I want to be. So however I can do it, through this podcast, through any channel, through any means, that's where I want to be. I want to influence people in a positive way, mate. So I know the future's bright. I'm not worried about the future at all. I'm more about I'm excited. So yeah, give me a couple of years, mate. Let me jump back on, and I'll go through my last 2 years journey then.
100%, mate. I'd love to listen. It's been, mate. I'm so grateful for you jumping on. Like I said, it was a pleasure getting to know you when you was down here, and I'm so glad we managed to keep in touch. And it's been
Definitely.
great to do, because I obviously was a guest on your podcast. It's been great to do the role reversal,
Yeah. What,
which is
and what
which
you
is
say,
awesome.
actually, you said you launched this back on, whether it was mine or other people's, but you've given me
Yeah,
a good kick up the bum, mate. I'm getting my fourth series back out in the next couple of months, so I'm going to be changing up a little bit. So yeah, you've given me a right kick up the bum to get mine going again. So thank you for that.
like I said, you definitely you definitely coming on yours and seeing what you've done. I remember speaking to you about it at the start. I wanted to do it, and it really inspired me to do that. And I'm so, like I said, for all the different things I do and all the different businesses, this is probably the thing I love the most. And yeah,
Yeah, bro.
it's awesome to chat to brilliant people like you. So, mate, we're going to finish with our quick fire questions.
Yeah, crack
You,
on.
you, you know, I love them. So, one piece of advice you give to your 18-year-old self.
Do you know what? I had to think about that. I I said to you, look, I'm very lucky. I've been very lucky, mate. There's no two ways about it. And if I was going back and seeing my 18-year-old self, I could only say just do your thing, because I've had such a I've had such a lucky if it all ended tomorrow, I'd have to say amazing, because I've had a great life. But take your chances, and say yes. I've just posted a bit of a LinkedIn post on coming on with this, Sam, and I could quite easily have said no and stayed in bed till another hour, and but when you get an opportunity, say yes rather than no. So I think if I went back and saw my 18-year-old self again, that's exactly what I'd say. Just keep saying yes, because the yeses are going to go the right way. You say no to things, you're going to regret what you haven't done, and I haven't regretted anything I've done.
Love that. I'm the same. I'm very much a yes man of me, because it's an opportunity for me. Life's an
Cool.
opportunity. So say yes to something. You know what? I say yes. I often go, God, why did I say yes to that? I've got to do that now. But you go and do it, and that experience that you got, loved it. So now, mate, I'm
Yeah,
with you on that.
absolutely, happy, mate.
Who's been your biggest inspiration throughout your life, and why?
Yeah, I've never really had someone in the industry or Steve Richards, my CEO in Novus, always been someone I've watched and admired from afar. He's just an absolute legend.
Yeah.
Humble, loves his rugby, like really into me. So from a hospitality point of view, Steve Richards has definitely been a person that I've 100% admired and just like he's a mate of mine. So we get on really well. But I've got to say, it's my dad, mate. There's no two ways about it. My dad is an absolute legend. There's no again. He works he puts up. He works for the electricity board. He's worked for the electricity board for the last 30 odd years. He's up now. He's been in work probably for about the last 45 minutes. He gets up at 4:30 every morning. He moans, yes, at me, but he never moans about getting up again, up and going. Right? He is the most. He's had 5 kids. He's got my absolute 100% respect. He's the reason why, another reason why I get up and do what I do because he just shows the way, mate. He's an absolute. He did the half marathon last month, 68 years of age. He high-fived every supporter. If there's a COVID spread in Cardiff over the last 2 months, it's definitely been from my dad high-fiving. So he just gets on and does, mate. So Steve Richards from a hospitality point of view for definite. But my dad's an absolute rock and legend. So, it's got to be him.
Love that. Love that. Well, could you recommend a book or a podcast to our listeners that's had an impact on you?
Yeah, look, I think I'd be silly not to say. I know it's a one that I know is passionate for you, but the Diary of the CEO. Steve Bartlett's like Marmite. You ask anyone, you either like him or you loathe him. But the reality is, he's really good at questioning, and the guests he gets on are amazing. Some of the things I've taken from that podcast is amazing. Definitely yours. I've listened to a few of yours as well. I think they're brilliant. But I've got, I have actually got a book that I've recently, a friend of mine has just written. I haven't given him this feedback yet, but I've got to be honest, it's one of the best books I've read, right? Just from honestly, it's called Rethinking Masculinity, right, by Dan Stanley. Really, really, if you've got a position where, like, you're our age, anywhere sort of 35, 40 plus, a bit lost, I've got to be honest, it's a brilliant book. He's written it really well. It's got some really, really testing questions. So I'm going to say Rethinking Masculinity by Dan Stanley.
I love that. Thank you. And finally, your one rule for living a fulfilled life.
Yeah, again, love the question. You just got to, that cliche, you got to crack on. Whatever throws at you, you've got to get up and get going again. All right? You've got to. If you stand still, lick your wounds, think everything's against you, think negatively about things. It's going to get the better of you. What you think is how you portray. So my mantra in life is always going to be crack on, mate. And that's what I'd say to all your listeners is get on with it. If you've got something to do today, just get on with it. Get a plan, get it going and crack on. So I think that's probably the best way to finish the podcast, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, if you hadn't finished it like that, I'd have been very, very disappointed.
Yeah. But look, but massive good luck, mate. I know you've got a few left, but keep going. I respect 100% what you're doing. And I'll be down in Brighton very soon. I'll hook up and I'll come for a game of golf with you.
I'd love to catch up with you, mate. Listen, thanks for jumping on. It's been brilliant, as I knew it would be. So, what can I say? I'm going to crack on and we'll go from there.
Yeah, you have a great one, mate. Sam, crack on, mate. I'll see you soon.